It's 2:47 a.m. at Club Nexus in Miami Beach. Ramon Stone Williams is watching his principal, a Silicon Valley CEO, order another $5,000 bottle of champagne, the fourth one tonight. But Stone's not watching the bottle, he's watching the girl who just walked into the VIP section carrying a Birkin bag that's way too heavy to be full of makeup. That's when everything changed.
That's when I knew. This wasn't executive protection anymore. I was guarding a bagman.
What's cracking, people? This is Big J, and you're listening to The Protection Perspective, the only podcast where we talk about the real shit that goes down in the security world. No Hollywood fantasies, no tactical gear reviews, none of that. Just real operators telling real stories about what actually happens out here in these streets when you're protecting people who might not deserve protection. Today's episode is something different, man. I got my man Ramon Williams with me. Most people call him Stone, and you'll understand why in a minute. He's been in executive protection for 8 years, worked with Fortune 500 CEOs, celebrities, high-profile clients you would definitely recognize. But the story he's about to tell you, this is why I do this podcast. This is the real shit that doesn't make it into the training manuals. Stone, what's cracking, homie? Welcome to the show, brother.
Appreciate you having me, Jay. Real talk, this is a story I haven't told many people. Most folks in the industry, they don't want to hear about the times things went sideways. They want to hear about the smooth operations, the success stories. But this right here, this is the story that changed how I look at this whole profession.
Copy. And that's exactly what we do here. We talk about the real. Before we get into the night that almost got you killed, let's set the stage for people listening. We're going to talk about the night you realized your principal wasn't just a tech entrepreneur, and how that realization put you in a position where you had to choose between doing your job and doing what's right. But first, let's lock in on your background. Take us back, man. How does a brother from Atlanta end up doing executive protection in Miami? Because this ain't exactly a career path they teach you about in high school.
Man, it's funny how life works, you know. I never planned to be in this industry. I was doing personal training in Atlanta, working at one of those high-end gyms in Buckhead where all the wealthy clients go. I'm talking about the kind of place where a monthly membership costs more than most people's rent. I had this client, real estate developer, older white dude with serious money. We'd been working together for about 6 months, and one day he asks me if I'd be willing to travel with him to New York for a business trip. Said he wanted someone with him for security purposes, someone he trusted. At first I thought he was joking, right? I'm a personal trainer, not a bodyguard. But he was serious. Offered me $3,000 for a weekend. That's when I realized there was a whole industry I didn't know existed. People with money, they don't just hire security for threats. They hire security for presence, for peace of mind, for status. That trip to New York opened my eyes to what was possible.
Hold up, so you just fell into this? No formal training, no background in law enforcement or military? That's wild. But I'm curious, what made you good at it? Because executive protection ain't just about being big and looking intimidating. There's actual skill involved. You got cats out here who look the part but don't know shit about threat assessment, advanced work, none of that. Walk me through how you went from personal trainer to legitimate executive protection professional.
You're right, looking the part only gets you so far. I'm 6'4", 240, played college football at Georgia State, so yeah, I had the physical presence. But after that first trip, I knew I needed real training if I was going to take this seriously. I started taking courses, man. Executive protection training, threat assessment, defensive driving, close quarters combat. I spent about 2 years really learning the craft while still doing personal training on the side. I studied how to read rooms, how to identify exits, how to position myself between my principal and potential threats. It became an obsession. And the thing about coming from personal training is I already understood how to read people, how to anticipate their needs before they even asked. That skill set translated directly to executive protection. You gotta be 2 steps ahead, always thinking about what could go wrong and how to prevent it. By 2019, I had built up enough of a reputation that I was getting referrals for higher profile clients. That's when I made the move to Miami. Better weather, better opportunities, and way more money floating around down there.
Facts. Miami is a different beast entirely. You got old money, new money, drug money, crypto money, all of it mixing together in one place. And with that kind of money comes a whole different level of security needs. So you moved to Miami in 2019. You're building your client base. Things are going well. When did you first meet Marcus Chen? And more importantly, when did you first start noticing something was off with this particular client? Because I'm assuming it wasn't day one that you realized you were protecting someone laundering money for a syndicate.
Marcus came into my life through a referral from another client sometime around August 2020. He was 34 years old, Asian American dude, Stanford educated, ran this cryptocurrency startup that was supposedly developing blockchain technology for financial institutions. On paper, everything looked legitimate. He had investors, an office in Brickell, the whole setup. When I first met him, he seemed like every other tech entrepreneur in Miami, ambitious, focused, always on his phone making deals. The first 6 months were completely normal, Jay. I'm talking boring, routine executive protection work. I'd pick him up from his condo in the morning, drive him to the office, sit in on investor meetings, take him to business lunches, bring him home. Occasionally we'd go to a nice restaurant for dinner, maybe a charity event, standard stuff. He paid well, always on time, treated me with respect. I had zero complaints. But then, around February 2021, things started to shift. He started going to this nightclub called Club Nexus every Thursday night. Not Friday, not Saturday, always Thursday.
Thursday night at a club? That's already weird. Thursday is industry night in most cities, but it's not exactly when CEOs are out there popping bottles. That's when the promoters and the local hustlers come out. So, what was the setup at this club? Walk me through what these Thursday nights look like, because I'm already getting a feeling this wasn't about Marcus enjoying the nightlife.
Exactly, that's what started making me pay attention. Club Nexus is on Ocean Drive, right in the heart of South Beach. High-end spot, velvet ropes, strict door policy, the whole Miami club scene experience. We'd roll up around 11 p.m. every Thursday, and here's the first thing that stood out to me. We never waited in line, ever. The head of security, this cat named Victor, would personally meet us at the entrance and walk us through a back door. Victor was former military, I could tell by the way he carried himself. Eastern European accent, maybe Russian or Ukrainian, cold eyes. This wasn't some nightclub bouncer checking IDs, Jay. This was a soldier. Victor would take us straight to the same VIP booth every single week. Corner booth, elevated section, perfect view of the entire club. And the bottle service, man, the bottle service was insane. Marcus would order these expensive bottles. Ace of Spades, Dom Perignon, bottles that cost $5, $6, sometimes $10,000 each. One night he spent 50 grand on bottles alone. But here's what really got my attention. Marcus wasn't drinking. The bottles would come with all the sparklers and the girls pouring, but Marcus would nurse the same glass all night long. He wasn't there to party.
Nah, see, that's when you know something's up. You don't spend $50,000 on champagne you're not drinking. That money is going somewhere else. It's paying for something else. And you said the same booth every week. Victor personally escorting you. All of that is establishing a pattern. In our world, patterns mean operations. This wasn't random. So what else were you noticing? Because I know you're trained to observe everything. What else was happening in that VIP section every Thursday night?
The same 3 women would show up every Thursday night, like clockwork. Always around midnight, never earlier, never later. And these weren't bottle service girls from the club. These were outside women who came specifically to our booth. All 3 of them were beautiful, I'm talking model-level beautiful, always dressed in designer everything. But what really caught my attention was the bags they carried. Birkin bags, Chanel bags, these expensive designer purses. And I started noticing that when they arrived, the bags looked heavy. When they left, the bags looked empty. One of the women, her name was Valentina, she was the main one. Russian or Eastern European, just like Victor. She'd sit next to Marcus, they'd talk quietly, and at some point during the night she'd slide her bag under the table. Marcus would reach down, do something I couldn't see, and then later the bag would be back in her possession. I'm watching all of this, trying to piece together what I'm seeing, but I'm also thinking maybe I'm being paranoid. Maybe these are just his friends. Maybe the bags are just bags.
Nah, homie, you weren't being paranoid. Your instincts were telling you exactly what was happening. Same girls, same bags, same routine every week. That's a money exchange operation. And the fact that Victor and Valentina are both Eastern European, that tells me there's an organization behind this. You got Russian mob, Ukrainian networks, all of that operates heavy in Miami. So you're seeing all of this, you're putting the pieces together. Did you say anything to Marcus? Did you ask him what's really going on here, or were you just observing and staying in your lane?
At first, I stayed in my lane because that's what you're supposed to do in this job. Your job is to protect the principal, not interrogate them about their business. But it got to a point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. This was probably mid-March, about a month into the Thursday night routine. One night, I saw Valentina hand Marcus a phone. Not her phone, a burner phone. He stepped away from the booth, made a call that lasted maybe 2 minutes, came back, and suddenly there's a new guest in our VIP section. This guy walks in wearing a tailored suit, no expression on his face, flanked by two dudes who were clearly armed. I could see the bulges under their jackets, the way they moved, the way they scanned the room. These were professionals. The suit sits down with Marcus, and here's what got me. They don't shake hands. They don't smile. They don't do any of the social pleasantries you normally see. The suit just nods, and one of the girls slides a bag under the table. The whole exchange took maybe 30 seconds. Then the suit and his guys got up and left.
Yo, that's a transaction. That's not a business meeting. That's not networking. That's a straight up criminal transaction happening right in front of you. So what did you do? Because at this point, you know what you're involved in. You know Marcus isn't just some tech CEO. He's moving money for dangerous people. Did you confront him? Did you think about walking away? Real talk. Walk me through your thought process.
I confronted him the next day. We were in the car, driving back from his office, and I just asked him straight up. I said, Marcus, what's going on with these Thursday nights? What's with the bags? The same people every week? The dude in the suit? And he got quiet for a minute. Then he turned to me and said, Stone, your job is to keep me safe, not ask questions. Then he added, the people I'm meeting with, they value discretion. You understand? And the way he said it, Jay, that wasn't a request. That was a threat. I understood exactly what he meant. He was telling me that if I kept asking questions, if I became a problem, those people he was meeting with would handle me. And I'm sitting there thinking about my situation. I'm making good money. I got bills to pay. I got family depending on me. But I'm also realizing that I'm in way over my head. So I did what probably wasn't the smartest thing. I started doing my own research on Marcus and his company.
Hold up, you started investigating your own client? That's bold, bro. Most people in your position would just cash the checks and look the other way, but you wanted to know what you were really protecting. What did you find out? Because I'm guessing once you started digging, you found some things that confirmed your suspicions.
I found out that Marcus's crypto company had been flagged by financial regulators for suspicious transactions. There were articles in financial publications questioning where their funding was coming from, how they were processing millions of dollars in transactions from shell companies in the Caribbean. The SEC had opened an inquiry, but nothing had been filed yet. His company was basically a front, Jay. They had the appearance of legitimacy, the office, the employees, the technology, but the real business was laundering money through cryptocurrency transactions. And the Thursday nights at Club Nexus, that was the cash intake. The women would bring cash from whatever operations the syndicate was running, drugs, extortion, whatever, and Marcus would take that cash and funnel it through his crypto company, converting it into clean digital assets. The bottle service bills were part of the laundering too. $50,000 on bottles creates a legitimate business expense, a paper trail that explains why large amounts of cash are moving through the club. It's genius, really. Evil, but genius.
Damn, so you're not just protecting a client at this point, you're protecting an entire money laundering operation, and you're surrounded by people who will kill to protect that operation. That's a dangerous position to be in because now you know too much. You can't just quit and walk away clean because they know you know. And you can't go to the police without putting yourself at risk. So you're stuck. What happened next? Because we're building up to the night everything went sideways.
I kept working, kept going to the Thursday nights, kept my mouth shut. But I started noticing other things that made me even more uncomfortable. Valentina, the main woman who brought the bags, she started showing up with visible bruises. She'd tried to hide them with makeup, but I could see them on her arms, on her neck. One night I pulled her aside, asked if she was okay. She looked at me like I was crazy and said, "If you're smart, you'll stop noticing things." Then she walked away. That's when I realized these women weren't just couriers. They were trapped in this life, probably being trafficked or coerced. And I'm standing there as a security professional watching this happen, and I can't do anything about it without risking my own life. That ate at me, man. Every Thursday night I'd see Valentina, see the fear in her eyes, and I felt helpless. But I also knew that if I tried to help her, if I tried to intervene, I'd end up dead in a ditch somewhere.
That's heavy, bro, because you're in a position where doing the right thing could get you killed, but doing nothing means watching people get hurt. That's the moral complexity of this industry that people don't talk about. Sometimes you're protecting people who are causing real harm, and you have to decide if you can live with that. So we're getting close to the night from the cold open, Thursday, March 18th, 2021. Walk me through that night step by step, because I want people to understand how fast things can go from routine to life threatening in this industry.
March 18th, 2021. I remember the exact date because it's burned into my memory. That day started different. Marcus was more nervous than usual, checking his phone constantly, pacing around his condo. When I picked him up that evening, he barely said 2 words to me the whole drive to the club. We arrived at Club Nexus at 11 p.m., same as always. Victor met us at the back entrance, but even he seemed tense. Something was off, I could feel it in the air. We get to the VIP section, and it's more crowded than usual. 2 other booths are occupied by groups I haven't seen before. I'm scanning faces, and I recognize some of these people from my research. One guy, I'd seen his photo in a Miami Herald article about money laundering investigations. Another guy had been arrested for racketeering but beat the case on a technicality. These weren't regular club-goers, Jay. These were connected people, high-level players in the Miami underworld, and they were all there on the same night.
So you got multiple criminal organizations in the same club on the same night. That's either a meeting or a setup. What was your instinct telling you? Because I know you had to be on high alert at this point. You're outnumbered, you're in a confined space, and you're surrounded by people who wouldn't hesitate to kill you if things went wrong.
My instinct was telling me to get Marcus out of there immediately, but he wasn't listening to me. He ordered the bottles, went through the usual routine, and we waited. Valentina arrived at 1 a.m., later than usual. She was carrying that Birkin bag, and I could tell immediately it was heavy by the way she carried it with both hands. She sat down next to Marcus, didn't say a word, just slid the bag under the table. Marcus opened it slightly, and I caught a glimpse of what was inside. Stacks of cash, Jay. Bundled and wrapped in plastic, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm standing there, hand near my waistband where I usually keep my piece, but I'd left it in the car because the club had metal detectors. So I'm in this situation completely unarmed, watching what's probably $500,000 in cash sitting under the table in a nightclub full of criminals. And I'm thinking, this is it. I need to get out of this job. But then I'm also thinking, if I walk away now, what happens to me? These people know where I live. They know everything about me.
Wait, you said $500,000 in cash in a Birkin bag in the middle of a nightclub? That's insane. That's not even trying to be subtle anymore. So you got the bag, you got the cash, you got all these dangerous people in the same space. Something's about to pop off. What happened next? Because I know we're building to the moment when everything went sideways.
At 2:30 a.m., there's a commotion at the main entrance. I hear shouting, then the music cuts off. Complete silence in the club, which never happens. Everyone stops what they're doing, and I see 4 men forcing their way past the club security at the front. These guys are dressed in all black, moving with purpose, and they're looking for someone. One of them points directly at our VIP section, and that's when I see Victor reach for his waistband. I knew right then we had about 10 seconds before shots were fired. The 4 men rush the VIP area, but they're not coming for Marcus. They're heading for the guy in the tailored suit in the booth next to ours, the one from the money laundering article. Chaos erupts immediately. The suit's bodyguards draw weapons, the 4 men in black draw weapons, people start screaming and running for the exits. I grab Marcus by the arm, I grab the Birkin bag with the cash, and I'm moving toward the back exit as fast as I can while trying to keep low.
Yo, that's when you know shit is real. When the club goes silent like that, somebody's about to die. So you got Marcus, you got the bag, you're moving toward the exit. But something happened that made you stop. What was it? Because I know from the cold open that Valentina factors into this.
Gunshots. 3, 4, 5 shots in rapid succession. I can't tell who's shooting at who, but I see Victor go down. Blood spreading across his white shirt. and he's not moving. Then I see the suited man's bodyguard shoot one of the attackers. The man drops immediately, just collapses like someone cut his strings. And I've never seen someone die before, Jay. Not like that. 1 second he's standing, the next he's just gone. And all I can think is, I'm holding a bag with $500,000 and these people will kill me for it. I get to the back exit with Marcus, and we're about to leave. We can get out clean, get to the car, disappear. But I look back, and I see Valentina. She's frozen in shock, just standing there in the middle of the chaos. And one of the gunmen, one of the guys in black, he grabs her. He's dragging her toward the main entrance, and she's not fighting back. She's just in complete shock.
Bro, this is the moment. You got the bag, you got Marcus, you can get out. The exit is right there. Your job is to protect your principal, get him to safety. But Valentina is being taken, and you know what happens to her if she gets taken by those guys. What's going through your head right then? Because that's not your job, right? Your job is the principal, not the courier.
I'm thinking about all my training. Rule number 1 in executive protection: protect the principal at all costs. Get them out of danger, that's the only thing that matters. But I'm also thinking about Valentina's face when she told me to stop noticing things. The bruises on her arms, the fear in her eyes every Thursday night. She's been trapped in this life, probably being hurt, probably being threatened, and now she's about to be taken by people who will definitely kill her. Marcus is yelling at me to move, to get out, screaming that we need to leave now. And I make a decision that goes against everything I was trained to do. I hand the Birkin bag to Marcus, I look him in the eye and I say, "Get out of here now." And he's looking at me like I'm insane, saying, "Stone, don't be stupid, what are you doing?" But I'm already turning around, already moving back into the club toward Valentina and the gunman.
Man, that's heavy. You risked your life, your career, everything for someone who wasn't even your client, someone who was part of the operation you were trying to distance yourself from, but you saw a person who needed help and you made a choice. So what happened? You're moving back into an active shooting situation, unarmed, going after a gunman who's dragging Valentina. Walk me through it.
I'm moving through the panicking crowd, people running everywhere, more gunshots going off behind me. I can see the gunman dragging Valentina toward the main entrance, and he sees me coming. I'm 6'4", 240, moving with purpose directly toward him. He knows I'm a threat. He lets go of Valentina and raises his weapon, pointing it directly at my chest. And I'm thinking, this is it. This is how I die. In a nightclub in Miami trying to save a woman I barely know. But I don't stop. I close the distance, and I use everything I learned in close quarters combat training. The second I'm within range, I go for the gun. I grab his wrist with both hands, twist it away from my body, and drive my elbow into his face. We go to the ground, and it's a fight for survival. He's trying to get the gun pointed at me. I'm trying to control his hands. I take an elbow to the ribs, feel something crack, but I don't let go. I can't let go. I finally get the gun away from him, and for a second I have it in my hand. I could shoot him. I could end this right now, but I don't. I just start hitting him, using the gun as a weapon, hitting him until he stops moving. And when he's down, when he's not getting back up, I grab Valentina and we run. We exit through a side door, and I can already hear police sirens approaching. We get to my car, and I'm bleeding. My ribs are killing me, but we're alive.
Damn. So you fought off an armed gunman with your bare hands, got Valentina to safety, and got out before the police arrived. That's some action movie type stuff, but this was real life. You could have died in that club. So what happened after you got to the car? Where did you go? What did Valentina say? Because I'm assuming she was in shock.
She was shaking, crying, couldn't form complete sentences. We sat in my car for a minute, and I'm trying to figure out what to do next. I can't take her to a hospital because there will be questions. I can't take her home because I don't know where she lives. And then she looks at me, tears running down her face, and she says, "You just killed yourself. They're going to come for you." And I knew she was right. I just assaulted someone connected to the organization. I abandoned my principal. I became a problem. I dropped her off at a location she gave me, somewhere in Hialeah. She got out of the car, looked back at me one more time, and said thank you. Then she disappeared into the night. I drove straight to a friend's place, called my family, and told them I needed to disappear for a while. I didn't tell them why, just that it was serious. That night, I left Miami and went into hiding.
So you went into hiding. For how long? And what happened with Marcus? What happened with the money? Because you handed him $500,000 in cash and told him to run. Did he make it out? And more importantly, did the organization come looking for you like Valentina said they would?
I stayed with family in Atlanta for 3 weeks, didn't tell anyone where I was, changed my phone number, stayed off social media, basically went ghost. The news reported the shooting as a gang-related incident. 2 people dead, including Victor, several injured. No mention of Marcus, no mention of the money, no mention of me. The club got shut down temporarily for investigation, but it reopened a month later like nothing happened. That's how Miami works. Marcus disappeared. His crypto company shut down 2 months later amid a federal investigation for money laundering. The SEC filed charges, but Marcus was gone. I heard rumors he fled to the Cayman Islands, maybe further. I never got paid for that last night, but honestly, Jay, I didn't want the money. I just wanted to forget it happened. I wanted to wake up and have it all be a nightmare.
So Marcus got away, the operation got shut down, and you were left dealing with the consequences. What about Valentina? Did you ever hear from her again? Did she make it out of that life, or did the organization pull her back in?
She contacted me once about 2 weeks after the shooting. Burner phone call, wouldn't tell me where she was. She thanked me for saving her life, said she was trying to get out of the life. And then she told me something that probably saved my life. She said she convinced the organization that I was just doing my job, that I didn't know anything about the operation, that I was just a bodyguard who got caught in the crossfire. I don't know if that's true or if they just decided I wasn't worth the trouble of hunting down. But I never heard from her again after that call. I hope she made it out. I hope she's somewhere safe, living a different life. But realistically, I know how these things work. The organization doesn't just let people walk away. She's either still trapped in that world or she's dead. And I have to live with the fact that I saved her that night, but I couldn't save her from the life she was stuck in.
That's real, man. You did what you could in that moment, but you can't save everybody. So you're in hiding for 3 weeks. You're processing this trauma. You're dealing with the physical injuries from the fight. At some point, you had to make a decision about your career. Did you go back to executive protection, or did this experience make you leave the industry entirely?
I left executive protection for 6 months. Couldn't do it anymore, man. Every time I thought about getting back into it, I'd have flashbacks to that night. The gunshots, Victor bleeding out on the floor, the guy I saw die right in front of me. I started having nightmares, panic attacks. I wasn't sleeping, so I took a job doing construction work with a cousin in Atlanta just to have something physical to do, something that didn't involve protecting people who might be criminals. But eventually I realized that executive protection is what I'm good at. It's my skill set, my career, my identity. I couldn't just walk away from it forever. So I came back, but I came back different. Now I vet every single client extensively before I take a job. I do background checks, financial research. I look into their business dealings. If anything seems off, if there's any indication they're involved in illegal activity, I turn down the job. I don't care how much money they're offering.
Copy. So you learn to protect yourself by being selective about who you protect. That's smart because, like you said, in this industry, you're not always protecting the good guys. Sometimes you're protecting people who are doing real harm, and you have to decide if you can live with that. What did this whole experience teach you about the security industry, about the moral complexity of what we do?
It taught me that money can corrupt anything. These clubs, these businesses, these legitimate-looking operations, they can all be fronts for criminal activity. And as security professionals, we can get pulled into that world without even realizing it. You think you're just doing your job, protecting a client, following orders, but then one day you wake up and realize you're complicit in something illegal, something dangerous, something that's hurting people. I also learned that you have to draw lines for yourself. You have to decide what you're willing to accept and what you're not. Because if you don't have those boundaries, if you just follow orders without thinking about the consequences, you can end up in situations where you're forced to choose between your job and your conscience. And that's a terrible position to be in. The industry doesn't talk about this enough. We talk about tactics, about equipment, about physical training, but we don't talk about the ethical dilemmas you face when you realize your principal is a bad person.
Facts. And that's exactly why I wanted to have this conversation, because this is the real shit that happens in our industry. People think executive protection is glamorous, that it's about protecting celebrities and traveling the world. But sometimes it's about protecting people who are laundering money, trafficking women, hurting communities. And you have to decide if you're okay with that. You still have nightmares about that night?
Yeah, I still have nightmares. Not as often as I used to, but they still come. I'll dream about the gunshots, about Victor's blood on the floor, about the guy I saw die. Sometimes I dream about Valentina being dragged away, and in the dream, I don't go back for her. I just leave. And I wake up feeling guilty, even though in real life I did go back. Trauma is strange like that. It doesn't care about what actually happened, it just replays the worst possibilities over and over. But I don't regret saving Valentina. That's the one thing I'm sure about. Everything else about that night, working for Marcus, being part of that operation, all of it, I regret. But going back for her, risking my life to get her out of there, that was the right thing to do. Even if it cost me my job, even if it put me in danger, even if it gave me nightmares. At the end of the day, Jay, we're in the protection business, and that night I protected someone who needed it, even if it wasn't my job.
That's powerful, man. You made a choice that went against your training, against your job description, but it was the right choice for you as a human being. And I respect that. A lot of people in your position would have just taken the money and looked the other way, but you couldn't do that. You saw someone who needed help, and you helped them, even though it cost you everything. I want to ask you something because I think this is important for people listening who might be in similar situations. If you could go back to the beginning when you first started working for Marcus, what would you do differently? What are the warning signs you would tell someone to look for?
First warning sign is when a client doesn't want you to ask questions. If they tell you your job is just to stand there and look intimidating, but they don't want you to understand the context of what you're protecting, that's a red flag. Legitimate clients want their security to be informed, to understand the threats, to be part of the planning process. Criminals want security that's blind and obedient. Second warning sign is patterns that don't make sense, like Marcus going to the same club every Thursday, spending insane amounts of money, but not actually enjoying himself, or the same people showing up at the same time with the same bags. Patterns are operational. If you see patterns that seem designed rather than random, you're probably looking at criminal activity. Third warning sign is when you start recognizing faces from news articles about criminal investigations. If your principal is regularly meeting with people who have been arrested, investigated, or connected to organized crime, you need to get out of that job immediately. Because when law enforcement comes for those people, they're going to come for everyone around them, including you. And the biggest thing I'd tell people is trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong. Don't rationalize it away. Don't tell yourself you're being paranoid. Your instincts exist for a reason. They're trying to keep you safe. Listen to them.
Real talk. That's solid advice. Trust your instincts, recognize the warning signs, and don't be afraid to walk away from money if the situation is dangerous or unethical. Because at the end of the day, no amount of money is worth your life or your freedom. You did 8 years in this industry. You've seen the good and the bad. You've been in situations most people can't imagine. What keeps you in executive protection now? What makes you still want to do this work after everything you've been through?
What keeps me in it is the legitimate clients, the people who genuinely need protection because they're doing important work, because they have real threats against them, because they're making a positive impact in the world. I've protected CEOs who are building companies that employ thousands of people. I've protected activists who are fighting for social justice. I've protected families who just want to live their lives without fear. Those are the clients that remind me why this work matters. And I also stay in it because I'm good at it. I've developed skills over 8 years that not many people have. I can read a room in seconds, identify threats, plan security operations, manage teams. Those skills are valuable, and I want to use them for good. I want to protect people who deserve protection, people who are making the world better. That's what keeps me going.
I feel that you found a way to take a traumatic experience and use it to become more selective, more intentional about the work you do. That's growth, man. That's maturity. A lot of people would have just quit or become cynical, but you found a way to continue doing work that matters while protecting yourself from the situations that almost destroyed you. Before we close out, I want to ask you about something you said earlier. You mentioned that Valentina had bruises, that she was clearly being hurt or coerced. As security professionals, we see a lot of things that make us uncomfortable. We see people in bad situations. What's our responsibility in those moments? Do we have an obligation to intervene, or is our only obligation to the client?
That's a hard question, Jay. Legally, our obligation is to the client. We're hired to protect them, not to be law enforcement or social workers. But morally, I think we have an obligation to be human beings first. If you see someone being hurt, if you see evidence of trafficking or abuse, you have a moral obligation to do something about it. Maybe that means calling the police anonymously. Maybe that means finding a way to help the person without compromising your position. But you can't just look the other way. The problem is that intervening can cost you your job, your reputation, maybe even your life. So I understand why people don't do it. I understand why they just focus on their principle and ignore everything else. But I also think that's how evil continues to exist in the world. Because good people see bad things happening and decide it's not their problem. And I don't want to be that person anymore.
That's real. And I think that's an important message for everyone listening, whether you're in security or not. We all have moments where we see something wrong and we have to decide if we're going to do something about it or look the other way. And those decisions define who we are. Stone, I appreciate you being so honest about this experience, about the mistakes you made, about the things you regret, and about the choice you made to save Valentina. This is the kind of conversation that needs to happen more in our industry. For everyone listening, this is what the protection perspective is about. Real stories from real operators who've been in situations most people can't imagine. We don't sanitize it. We don't make it Hollywood. We tell it like it is. If you're in the security industry or thinking about getting into it, understand this. You're going to face moments where you have to choose between the job and what's right. And that choice will define who you are. Stone, if people want to connect with you, learn from your experience, maybe work with you if they need legitimate executive protection, where can they find you?
People can find me on LinkedIn under Ramon Williams, Executive Protection. I'm also on Instagram, same name. I do consulting for security professionals who want to improve their skills, and I take on select clients for executive protection work. But like I said, I'm very selective now about who I work with. If you're doing legitimate work and you need legitimate protection, reach out. But if you're involved in anything illegal, don't waste my time.
Copy. And that's the way it should be. Before we close out, I want to ask you one final question. What's your final thought for people listening? What's the one thing you want them to take away from this conversation?
Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong. Don't let money or fear or obligation make you ignore what your gut is telling you. And remember that at the end of the day, you have to live with the choices you make. So make choices you can live with. Protect people who deserve protection. Walk away from situations that compromise your values. And if you see someone who needs help, help them, even if it's not your job, even if it costs you something, because that's what separates us from the people we're supposed to be protecting against.
Perfect. Stone, man, I appreciate you coming through and sharing this story. This is the kind of real conversation that the industry needs to have more often. Thank you for your honesty, for your courage, and for being willing to talk about the hard parts of this profession.
Appreciate you having me, Jay. This conversation was therapeutic for me. I don't talk about this stuff often, but it felt good to get it out, to share the lessons I learned. Hopefully it helps someone avoid making the same mistakes I made.
It will, trust me. All right, everybody, that's it for this episode of The Protection Perspective. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the platforms. Leave a review. Share this episode with someone in the industry who needs to hear it. And remember, we're building a community of professionals who are committed to doing this work the right way, with integrity, with skill, and with a moral compass. Next episode, we're going to talk about something completely different, international protective operations, and what it's like protecting clients in hostile environments overseas. But for now, stay alert, stay professional, stay ethical, and stay alive. This is Big J. Until next time, let's go.